Hey, Kenneth, go ahead and unmute yourself, like, subscribe, hit that notification button. Don't forget to share this video with your fellow veterans. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dwayne. I got a video for that Kimball United States Army veteran, retired VA rating specialist, and your VA claim nugget man. Welcome to this evening live stream. Normally, I don't go live the second Wednesday without my counterpart, David Piatek, but we went live earlier. I do have a special guest. For some reason, they just got kicked out of the stream, so we'll wait on them to come back in. But tonight, we are going to be talking about the new hearing. Oh, here he is. Okay, there it is. Mrs. Davis, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. A few technical difficulties.
Yeah, I saw. I was like, wait a minute, where'd he go? We was just talking. But I just already introduced myself, and we got a few people. Make sure you go ahead and hit that like button. Let's just get right into it, Mrs. Davis. Can you go ahead? I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. Let everybody know your military background, what it is you do, why, your time at the VA, so forth, and then we'll go ahead and we'll get right into tonight's topic.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kimball. My name is Kenneth Davis, CEO of Veterans for Veterans, organization serving veterans, obviously amongst all the benefits, and trying to be able to make sure that we serve the veteran community. I am a U.S. Navy Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom veteran. Have done, again, several different deployments and kind of understand the military world in and out. So technically, you could say, I've been in the military world for over 20 years, just in and out, just making sure, again, that we're serving our community. Also, again, background I worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs for many years, starting from 2014 all the way for a VA, all the way to Washington, D.C., and also across the country at the San Diego regional office, again, Milwaukee regional offices all across the country, ending up here in Las Vegas, Nevada as well. So, I kind of have a wide range of understanding of, VA, the VBA, VHA, and kind of just the VA overall. So, just really excited to go ahead and start this conversation.
Appreciate it. Real quick, Ms. Davis, how many claims do you think you adjudicated when you was at the VA?
Man, including overtime?
Yeah, I think I'm up around about 15,000, give or take.
Man, easily.
Yeah. So a lot of people, you make sure you go out to he has a YouTube channel, Prepare to Compete podcast on YouTube. Again, he adjudicated claims for the VA, like myself, trained by the VA. They have a lot of videos about, I think, VA home loans, entrepreneurship, VA benefits, and stuff like that on your channel as well, correct?
Yes, sir. Again, just diving into the aspects of the veteran community and the needs, right? We know so many different veterans are in need of so many different things, and we want to be able to provide a space where we can really provide assistance and also education.
Outstanding. So we're going to go ahead and get into tonight's topic. I do have some notes. Thank you for watching that hearing that I sent you because there's a lot of, I don't want to say fear mongering. A lot of vets have been reaching out to me. Dwayne, what's going on? What are they going to do with this? And I'm just like, whoa, stop it. Stop. Get some help, because, you hear about these committee hearings, especially when it comes to VBA compensation, and people just start to lose their what. And I'm like, when I looked at that hearing, when I watched the hearing, I wasn't thinking about what they say they're going to do. I was thinking about what can veterans do if veterans find themselves in some adverse action. Do they understand what the VA regulations afford them? And I think that's the piece that a lot of veterans are missing. So everyone, what we're talking about, we're going to be talking about is this DBQ fraud, signs of fraud, and them going with this Power BI tool and stuff like that. So, Mr. Davis, when you rated, DBQs were already on board, right? I think, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, most
Okay.
definitely.
When I started rating, they were not. That's how far back uh, I go, and I tell people that there was a system called RBA 2000 before
Mm.
VBMS, and that was a nightmare. And then we jumped into VBMS. But when you started adjudicating claims, did you see? Did you come across any DBQs or nexus statements that possibly had fraud or made you question those DBQs and nexus statements?
Oh, all the time, all the time. There are many DBQs that identifiably were not necessarily the best in regards to actually complete and thorough understanding of the actual disability. There's so many DBQs that came across the desk. Understandably, it was some DBQs that almost made you need to order a CAB exam, but
Yeah.
there were some DBQs that were ultimately pristine and would just again pass the first round of eye tests and go ahead and forward it and get that veteran disability benefits.
Right. And I have to tell people, I'm like, what people are not talking about is a word about this hearing, but even in the hearing, no one on the House committee is saying, asking the VA, why did you all implement these DBQs? Why do you
Mm.
have these DBQs and you have some, not all? And I think this is where the inconsistency comes in. Some, not all employees are still requesting an exam when they can use the DBQ. I wasn't going to waste time and resources of requesting an exam when I look at it and I'm like, yep, it's sufficient, it's good to go. Why am I going to go turn around and schedule an exam? I'm gonna go ahead and knock that out, meet my quota, take it to the house.
Yeah.
But there was times I did have to, unfortunately request the exam because the DBQ was not complete. But there was a gentleman on the panel. His name was Mr. Smith II. Okay. And some of the things that he said that they're going to be doing, they're going to use this new AI tool to go back and scan all these DBQs and look for, certain patterns. And one of them was if they were altered. I never came across a DBQ that was actually physically where they like whited out something and, changed the whole thing. What I did see a lot of veterans submitting old DBQs that were outdated. I saw that. Did you see that as well?
Yes, sir. Old DBQs that, obviously we can understand that, prescribed forms change.
Yep.
However, those old DBQs, one thing that it did set in place that as a rater, from my perspective, it really still set in place the standard of symptomatology,
Mhm.
right? Which was great and a basis of understanding and also to support the actual examiner. But obviously, as a rater, we can't do anything. Our hands are tied, right? Because you then would, have um, a ding against you. So
Mhm.
that's something that, understandably, that was one major thing that we came across. But another thing that I came across a lot of was not necessarily DBQs that were old DBQs. That was a big thing. However, another big thing was veterans actually signing off their own DBQs and it actually not being seen by a physician. That was a big thing for some odd
Ooh.
reason.
Mm. It's like one of those things is I don't condone it, but I understand it. Just because people are so frustrated and they're just like, I'm done. But two wrongs don't make a right. I never saw one where it was. I did have to question one time. I asked the examiner to. It was they had crossed some stuff out, and I said, "Hey,
Mm.
just can you initial it?" He went through and just initialed all over this thing. And I said, you know what? So I don't get a quality error. Let me reach out to the QRT team and talk to someone down there. And they looked at it and they were like, yeah, you can go ahead, you can go ahead and use it.
Yeah.
And so I just, covered my butt with that. Also, Mr. Smith saying another indicator is information missing in the signature blocks.
Yeah.
Now I seen this from some VA examiners, so you got to send an addendum back. But this is something that I think this indicator is something that I think will fall on the veteran, because if you go out to any examiner, you need to be looking at that stuff. You need to be going through it, not saying that you're trained to know what is sufficient, but just look through it. Oh, wait a minute. I should be coming back. Well, I'm gonna keep going until I fix my camera. I don't know what's going on with my camera. But can you still hear me, Mr. Davis?
Yes, sir. Hear you loud
Okay.
and clear.
All right. So what happened, you have to send it back. But from private doctors, one of the things that I saw was when they start asking for the medical license number and the MPI number. And in the
Yeah.
box for the MPI number, they will have to put the state, and they will sometimes not see that they had to put the state. How you see anything like that on your end?
Yes, sir. Deemably, I asked, did they forget to actually put the state, or was it purposely done? And I think when actually evaluating those DBQs, I think that was a really big push talking about those DBQs, because a lot of times, if you're a veteran in California and getting a DBQ from a physician that lives in North Dakota, Minnesota, well, when we're talking about a disability questionnaire, we can go into the ACE examination process. However, majority of those DBQs weren't in a telehealth ACE format. So those actual DBQs were actually completed by another veteran, examiner in another state. And when it's being done by another examiner in another state, that's a red flag. That's an immediate red flag. And I'll tell you right now, a lot of raters are going to send that for CMP exams. Again, those were identifiable markers that really helped and kept raters accountable. But also, I think what it did was it's hindering the veterans. Why? Because this isn't being communicated correctly to the veterans.
Right.
So,
When I rated, it didn't bother me if it was out of state.
oh wow, okay.
Because here's why.
Mhm.
As long as the examiner says, if they were, let's say if it was a veteran in Chicago and their examiner was in New Orleans, okay, as long as that veteran or the examiner didn't say they were regularly seen in that office, and
Mhm.
was, could have been some that could have been done by Zoom, I would rate it. And I actually had some of those that got pulled by quality review,
Mm.
and it passed. And that was the discussion when I was at the St. Petersburg regional office, and the quality team was like, "Yeah, and there was
Mhm.
some other things that we had to watch out for. But I even talked to some raters just last week, and they were like, "Yeah, we got the same training, that you all had, and it's still like that." But
Yeah.
here's the thing: you got some raters that are like, "No, I'm gonna
Yeah.
request," and that's where the inconsistency comes in, because if you get it pulled by the quality team and you got some quality individuals saying, "Yep, that's not an error," and then you got some saying, "Go ahead and request the exam," it's like, okay, who's right, who's wrong? Because you're not getting an error for it. And they're like, well, at the end of the day, it's up to you. If you want to request that exam, go ahead and request it. But you're not going to get 100 raters in a room and all of them going to agree on something.
Definitely not.
That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen.
That's not how that works. No.
Man, I don't know I had some issues with my camera earlier. I do apologize. I'm working it on my end, but we'll keep going until I get that corrected.
Sure. But I would love to be able to kind of expound upon that. I think you made a great point there, right? When we talk about the inconsistency of training, I always relate to the veterans and understand that a lot of this training, a lot of this information is going to be based upon discretionary opinion as well. We got to take that in consideration. That's why evidence and weighing heavily on evidence is going to help. And obviously the DBQ is one of the highest forms of evidence. But now that DBQ, when we talk about passing quality review standards, that's not set across the board because everyone is not receiving the same training. When we're talking about nationwide, you may have a QRT team at the San Diego regional office doing things much differently than they are in St. Petersburg.
Yep. And that was a big issue when VBMS came online, and we would get quality reviews from other locations. They was reviewing our work. And I remember I had to, in one of this instance, they were like, well, the veterans examiner was out of state. And I said, well, they didn't, when they give you an error, they have to say what regulation that you violated. And they said, well, here's this 100-mile thing. I said, it just says potential indicator. Doesn't say it doesn't state that it is an indicator. So therefore, I just use my personal judgment and I train him. And that was a big thing. So yeah, you're exactly right. The training across the board, you go to CO, yeah, you get the same training there. But then when you get back to your home station, it's almost like it's up to interpretation. I've had instances where I was telling some people where you could go and ask drones questions. And Joe told me one time, you're not wrong if you grant the benefit, and you're not wrong if you deny it. And I'm like, what? They were like, so pick which one. I was like, well, I'm granting. They like, just make sure you justify with this regulation in the narrative, and that's it. Now, I also tell veterans, it's like a crapshoot. It just depends on, a situation like that. It just depends on what type of rater you get at that point.
Yeah. And again, I think we have a very similar thought process, when it comes to granting, right? We want to always grant the veterans. So if there is anything that's going to kind of either be swayed back either which way, whether if it's going to be a denial or a grant, guess what? I'm granting all day. All day. However, that is not always the remnants of the rater that has your file.
Yeah.
So be very intentional about what you are stating, what you are doing, and always be intentional about the determination. So, and what I mean by that is making sure that your evidence is so secure that you're not going to get, there's no way for them to say no, because you don't know who you're going to get. They may again, you may have a rater that is, just having a crap day that day.
Yeah.
And as much as we want to remove our personal judgment in a decision, it happens. We're human. All right, we're human.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, sometimes you may receive a denial that may not be an actual denial. And that's unfortunate. And it happens though.
Oh yeah. I mean, I made some errors. I even did, back when it was paper files, and I go back and I'm like, wait a minute, who did this? And I'm going off and look at the code sheet, got my initials on there. I did it. And I got to figure out what my thought process was when I was rating it. Yeah. But in that hearing, I did like the chairman, Mr. Luttrell, because
Mm.
I felt kind of bad for that. What was that lady's name? She was a Marine veteran, but she worked for the VA. And every time he would ask her something, she would just sit there. And he was like, "Well, I know you can't say it because you work for the VA, but just keep in
Yeah.
mind you are a veteran." And she was just, man, I was like, somebody set her up with that one. I don't think he went as hard as he could have went, but he definitely was he was definitely not not seeing or buying what she was putting out. But
Yeah.
we talked about some other some of these indicators they talked about. One was refuse to appear for the exam. Now, I had a gentleman call me out on YouTube on somebody else's channel in the comment section, said that I was telling people they were competent to determine if their DBQ was sufficient or not. And I said, no, that's not what I said. What I said was the reason why I stopped going to CMP exams and why I wouldn't go back, because I had 4 CMP exams at the VA before the DBQs came out. 2 of them were really good. The other 2 were horrible. And when I went to my local VA medical center's release of information and got a copy of those CMP exams, and I looked through it, they just flat out lied.
Mm.
They were like, they said I said this, and I was like, I'm thinking to myself, I didn't say that. So then I had to file a complaint. And then back then it wasn't, you didn't have quick submit and all this stuff, and you could, turn around and get an exam in the next week or 2. And then when the
Yeah.
DBQs came out, I said, you know what? I'm taking their control away from them. And
Mm.
the crazy thing about it, one of the examiners that lied, I start rating cases with exams that he had did.
Mm.
And I end up talking to his supervisor about a case one day. And she was like, well, Mr. Kimball, I don't understand. I said, well, I'm going to tell you why. I said, because the complaint against that doctor that you all just received 3 weeks ago, that was me. So I know he's doing it wrong. And I say, now I got a case of another veteran where I feel strongly that he lied. And so what they had to do, they called the vet back in and she did the exam. And it was for a back condition. And he stated he didn't have to use a goniometer to measure range of motion. And other raters on my team were just rating it. I got to get my
Mm.
points. I got to get, and I'm like, no. So with, examiners like that, you don't know who you're going to get. And you show up and, you're being honest and, you're giving them information and you're thinking that they're going to be honest and do it the right way. Now, it wasn't all examiners. And I remember the front office management was like, oh, yeah, just go ahead and do it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to sign off on this because it's not right. They're
Mm.
supposed to follow certain, particular guidelines. And so I made it a point then. I said, you know what? Let me ask my own examiners. 2 of them they had been treating me like 2 years before I even went to the VA to see if they would do these DBQs. And I explained the situation and they said yes. Even when I rated cases, I had quality reviews where veterans submitted DBQs, refused the exam for whatever reason. I didn't care if it was good cause or not. I had evidence that I could use to rate. Those regulations are still there. As long as it was sufficient, I go ahead and use it. I'm not going to hold that
Mm.
veteran's claim up. you know. Now, it was even times, and I don't know if this ever happened to you. I was telling somebody because veterans are thinking that, oh, let me just go get a nexus statement. I'm like, what is that going to do for you? I'm still going to request the exam. Now, I may request the exam and may not ask for a medical opinion if the nexus is good to go. But if it's, I still need that DBQ done. Have you ever had an instance where you rated a case where a veteran only submitted the nexus and you had to request a CMP exam without the medical opinion?
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. But before I get into that, I kind of wanted to take a step back in regards to the situation that you just kind of described, right?
Mhm.
I think that was a very, very huge call that I would make too. And at the end of the day, a lot of these raiders in the Department of Veterans Affairs are veterans themselves. So as a
Yeah.
veteran, taking into consideration of what a veteran is going through those CMP exams, and the examiner actually lying and not actually being truthful about what transpired.
Right.
That right there happens so very often. And I really, really want to make sure that veterans understand that be very cognizant about the things that you discuss in your examination.
Mhm.
And not only that, but take the time out to make sure that when you have completed the exam, requesting a copy of your examination, which you actually did. So you know what is discussed and stated, because there are many CMP examiners. When you go into that office, what happens is they will look at you and grab all the symptoms, go through the actual the disability questionnaire itself, and once they evaluate you, they said, "Hey, we're going to put it in. So go ahead, so you can get about 50%, okay,
Mhm.
for your knee." Okay, so let's really pull that back, right? We understand that 9 times out of 10, trying to get 50% for a knee injury is going to be very seldom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have a total knee replacement, we can pretty much count that out. So when we talk about those examinations, my point is that you want to make sure that you are validating everything that is written in your examination. I know they only give you about 5 to 15 minutes, but make sure that you have the opportunity to validate everything that is discussed and stated within that examination, so there is no confusion when you are getting rated.
Right.
And that was a big thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I just wanted to discuss that before we moved on, because I don't want to just glance over that, because a lot of veterans miss the opportunity of really knowing what's in the exam themselves, and they have the right to. They have the right to. That's your right as a veteran.
Right. And I would also tell veterans, like I stated earlier, when you get these DBQs back, if you're dealing with a company that's just top heavy, making it top heavy, front loading it, be very careful, because that was always a suspicion of mine, you know, just tons and I'm just like, whoa, wait a minute, it looks good, but looking good doesn't mean that it's always correct, you
Mm,
know, just, short, direct, to the point, you know. I've seen where every single box, I mean, was just crammed with information. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, right? Um, Not saying that it was wrong, but I've talked to veterans where they say, my nexus statement was solid. Well, read me the rationale. Well, what's
mm.
that? That's a problem. My nexus statement was 30 pages long. My question to them is, who gonna read that? VA fully
Please.
exposed it to it. They own quotas. And I told them, I said, I can tell you right now, if I was still rating, I'm not reading that.
No.
I'm not, no, you're not gonna get me behind on my quota. I need to see the pertinent information. And I'm like, where's your DBQ? And what vet said, well, what's the DBQ? And I was like, oh man, that's like a whole nother conversation. But I think with these so-called indicators, they're about to open up a whole can of worms, because even though they talk about AI will be able to read a million, or I can't remember what the number is, in a short period of time.
Mm.
you still got to put some human eyes on that,
Yeah.
because you just can't say, oh, just because a veteran went over, 100 miles away, or some of these other indicators, we're going to call that veteran in. Tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna say reschedule me, and I'm gonna try to get it rescheduled 4 or 5 times. Because now, what comes into play? Do they say, "Well, wait a minute, we can reduce you"? Well, if that um, percentage has been in effect more than 5 years, you need 2 exams to show improvement, right?
Yes, sir.
So now you got to give me due process, do a proposal to reduce. I'm gonna do a request to RVSR hearing, put everything on hold. Then I'm gonna go get a DBQ, because you can submit evidence in RVSR hearing, and I'm gonna bring 3 or 4 witnesses, swear them in. We all gonna get on camera. Now I'm gonna be asking that rater certain questions. Are you someone that just out to deny veterans, and you agreeing with all this hearing stuff? I'm throw some 38 CFRs out there. What makes this insufficient? Because there's nothing saying that your examiner has to be within 100 miles. It's just a
Mhm.
potential indicator, especially when the examiner says, yeah, they're regularly seeing them in office. But what if they're treating them by Zoom, for,
Mhm.
say, major depressive disorder? So I think there's a lot of things that veterans also need to be looking at on the back end if they find themselves on the short end of the stick of this whole uh, I'm trying to think of the words what to call it, catastrophic fiasco,
Mhm.
shit
Mhm.
show, or whatever. But I'm not going to be naive and say that there's no fraud.
Yeah.
Just vets just remember, do it the right way. I get it; it's frustrating, but just make sure you're doing it the right way.
Yeah, and that I think that's the reminiscence of things, right? I think even including if veterans, you take anything away, right there, that strategy that Mr. Kimball just gave you, right there, amongst your due process, you guys don't take advantage of the due process time.
Right.
Many times, veterans just don't even acknowledge it and allow them to evaluate it themselves. Requesting that hearing there alone can elongate that process for easy a 6 months to a year time frame.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And I just love doing those hearings because um, I had the opportunity to contact the vet before the hearing
Mhm.
and say, "Hey, I need this. Can you get it to me in 30 days?" Especially if they had a rep, and they like, "Yeah, I can get it to you." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I can use it, to rate and keep you at your current percentage." You know, so there's things in uh, raters have at their disposal, to help the vet. But like you said, and it comes down, Mr. Davis, this is the thing I was telling somebody, I was doing a live stream earlier, and we were saying, when you get documentation from the VA, especially the notification letter and the rating packet, read it. Veterans see that $15,000 back pay. They don't look at the effective date. The effective date could be wrong, like you said. Some could be wrong, some could be wrong, and they wouldn't know it because some of them don't want to take the time and read the decision
Yeah.
letter, you know.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that it's so much information in the decision letter. Take the narrative alone, right? The narrative of your denial will give you so much information. If it's completed correctly, it would identify your favorable findings, your actual CFR that they actually denied your file on, giving you a ways, basically giving you the information to strategize to how to get it a positive opinion enacted. I mean, a positive decision enacted. So if you want to get granted on a denial, just take a step back and look at the denial itself and the notification letter.
Right.
But I mean, just kind of going back to the due process, and I think with that, you were mentioning that kind of having AI, you being able to focus on specific indicators on these DBQs. Well, I think that's very risky too. I think it's very risky because there is a lot of human judgment amongst this.
Oh
There's
yeah.
a ton of human judgment. As much as the AI can be able to be of assist, it will never. I don't believe it will ever get to the point where it's actually making decisions because it's
Right.
too many components that you really have to take in consideration. A lot, using your best judgment on how plausible a veteran could have been exposed to toxic radiation or water contamination in Camp Lejeune,
Mhm.
or having a job in the DMZ and being exposed to possible Agent Orange, but you didn't work on a flight line. However, you were MP at the gate. So could you possibly be exposed based upon interactions with flight line military members?
Right. Right.
Those are
So,
small implemental things that could make or break a decision.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I often tell people some of the things um, that I've seen go on behind the scenes. With the coaches say, "Hey, the front office want this claim done by the end of the day." It's 3 o'clock. My end of tour duty is at 3:30. This is 15 conditions, and each one have a separate DBQ. Now, do you think I'm gonna be able to get through this in 30 minutes? No. I'm by the time I get through the 526CZ and confirm what the veteran is claiming, and if they actually should have been given a CMP exam, that may take me 15, 20 minutes right there.
Yeah.
You know, and then you're talking about going through, and then you got to confirm is whether the exams completed correctly. Were they completed correctly? And sometimes you get some raters that try and rush, and that's when these accidents, I don't want to say accidents, mistakes happen. But you know, I don't want to try to say too much, but want you to chime in here. When you saw this hearing, what did you think about this AI tool and them going back to, I think they said October 2010, 1 million claims. They're going to try to get this tool by the end of the year. I'll let you give your opinion, then I'll give mine on that.
Um, so as understand, okay. I want to provide full transparency. So, and I'm gonna speak about the thoughts on the question.
Mhm.
So, I personally am going for a doctoral degree at UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and currently completing that. One of my policies is basically enacting and changing how the dependent immunity compensation policy, how is it basically enforced. You must be 100% permanent and total to be able for surviving spouses to be able to receive the benefits. Okay. We want to go amongst Congress to get that change. So I say that to say, with the committee reviewing introducing this bill and also implementing AI so quickly into something so impactful to millions and millions and millions of veterans to be able to implement at the end of the year,
Yeah.
I foresee nothing but damage veterans not getting their benefits that they deserve.
Yeah.
And why I tell you that is 9 times out of 10, there is going to be a failure of implementation that is mistake after mistake after mistake is going to happen.
Hmm.
Just look at the track record. Let's just take a few seconds to look at think about again introducing VBMS. That was a just like you said, a shit show, right?
Hmm.
It transitioning manual paper copy files to the centralized intake center to get scanned and get digitized. How well did that go? How many veterans files were lost, or how many veterans files were intertwined with other veterans files?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I know this? I was a part of it. So when I tell you implementing something of this magnitude right now in such a short amount of time frame, veterans strap up for the ride.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I definitely remember that transition and the AVSN, was AVSN, Assistant Veteran Service Center Manager. Yeah, AVSCMs.
Yep.
Running around like with their head cut off because each location had their own warehouse.
Yep.
And so St. Pete had a huge warehouse, man. And they were like, we got to get these files out. We got to get them to Wisconsin. We got to get them to Wisconsin. We got to get them to Wisconsin. And then we were getting ready to rate cases, and there was no documents in VBMS for veterans.
Just blank.
You know, yeah. You open it up, no 526CZ, no DD2, no nothing. I'm like, so now as VA employees, we're looking for work. If you don't have no service treatment records in there, you can't even develop for us to see if the veteran needs a CMP exam.
So could you explain how that affects the rater though?
Well, it depends on your management team. For us, well, we were allowed to do TMS, the training. You do 8 hours of TMS, you done. You mentally drained at that point, and it's not enough TMS for, you know, to compensate for the amount of time downtime that, like you said, you have because of, you know, the transition. And it's crazy. But my take on this, do they need to do something about this fraud that they're having? I think what they're doing is saying, hey, out of these million cases, we found one case and there's rampant fraud everywhere. You know, you got vets, you know, just like losing their mind. And people in these hearings, they do not have boots on the ground. They don't have their thumb on the pulse of veterans to know exactly what's going on. They're relying on information from management team. And guess what? When I was at my regional office, them VSMs, it was like, you all are beneath us. Coaches, you go talk to them and then come back. So if you have individuals that were sucking up the coaches, then they're going to tell them exactly what they need to hear. I never was in any of those meetings because I was going to tell them, look, all y'all need to go resign, go work somewhere else because you don't have no management skills. You just got into management because somebody thought you was really, really cool. You know, with your management skills, I was just that dude, you know. But yeah, one, I think they do need to do something about the fraud, but also I do agree with you. It is going to create a shit show. There's going to be a lot of excuse me. There's going to be a lot of this whole transition thing. There's going to be a lot of things I think that are going to go wrong, and then they're going to go back in front of Congress and they're going to talk about we didn't anticipate it. There's like sending a battle group over to the Middle East, and even though I think they're all nuclear now, I wasn't in the Navy, but they say they weren't nuclear, and don't fill the tank up full way, just fill up halfway. Then you stop in the middle of the ocean. Well, we didn't know that we needed a full tank to get this done. Yeah, you know, to go from point A to point B. But some of these indicators, I don't agree with it. And I think they also need to be taking a look at their own examiners in DBQs. And I think that they need to put it on of the quality report. I don't know what the document is that the AQRSs and RQRSs use when they are reviewing a rating or development to see if VSR, RVSR committed an error. as to if that DBQ is sufficient. Don't waste uh, the VA's resources by scheduling an exam that's not needed. You're overdeveloping for it. If an exam is needed, yes, then you can do that. And it's I think the dash one also talks about some other things that they can do if they run into certain scenarios. But yeah, it's going to be crazy, and people are asking all type of questions. Well, Dwayne, if they do this, if I'm in this situation, what's going to happen? I can't tell you.
Yeah.
Nobody can. You just got to wait on those instructions to come out. But just keep in mind the people that are making these decisions, they're not connected with the veterans. They're not connected.
But and again, I want to really focus on that, right? When we talk about these people in these committees, you're making high level decisions with only brash data in front of you.
Mhm.
If you do not have the information, like you said, with boots on the ground or grassroots information to really understand what is transpiring,
Mhm.
you have no clue.
Man.
So you have no clue. Let me again, and this just came out from the Department of Veterans Affairs page yesterday. It was very, very interesting. Secretary Doug Collins, he put out that under the Biden administration, there was a huge backlog back in 2021, right? The backlog was again increased over there was an increase about 200,013 benefit claims in backlog. Right, 2025, it went up to 264,000. But then then the Department of Veterans Affairs put out for under the Trump administration currently, right, January 2025, it was still at 264,000 backlog. But then we're reduced to 101,000 backlog. As a previous raider, let me tell
Try
you.
not to laugh.
As a previous raider, I will tell you right now, if that backlog dropped that quickly and they increase hiring, and Mr. Kimball just stated how long it could take one decision if someone is rushing you on a case with 15 contentions or 15 conditions rather, that could be an all-day case. Literally, it could take you all day to rate that case on the depending on the complexity.
Yeah.
So showing that the backlog went from 264,000 to 101,000 without any increase of hiring. Well, when I would talk about hiring, I'm not talking about rookie raiders.
Yeah.
I'm talking about well-seasoned raiders. Only thing that tells me there that there's over 100,000 wrong claims being processed. That's what that data tells me. And that's from being boots on the ground.
Right. And when I heard that, I didn't even pay attention to it. I say somebody pencil whipping, fudging. I didn't even do a video about it because I'm like, it's not, it wasn't even worth the time. And I'm like, if you doing that, how? I immediately thought about that incident at the PMC in Philadelphia where that VSR was approved. That's what I immediately thought about it. I say the fix is in somewhere. Somebody is fudging numbers somewhere. Production. The regional office production numbers. You want to get upper management, a director at a regional office or a veteran service center manager wound up. Ask them what their numbers look like. The average wait time. They sweating bullets because they got to report that up. They sweating bullets, And I remember they were having pizza parties. The team that could rate the most cases this month. And look, I can go to Pizza Hut to get me a pizza when I get off work. You're not about to stress me out trying to, me rushing through here for a slice of pizza, And then half the time, I work from home full time. So when I'm not going to do, I can, I'm going to put a piece in the oven. Well, we'll get on Zoom and you can eat lunch. Get out of here. I'm not doing that. And I don't know, some people like, man, you just an angry black dude at work. But I was just like, I didn't like, and I didn't want to deal with all that BS. Let me rate, leave me alone. Let me rate, let me service the vet, let me do what it is you trained me to do. I'm just worried about a lot of veterans are seeing these videos come out and they're scared. And they're calling me, they're emailing me, Dwayne, and I'm like, stop, calm down. If worst case scenario happens, they got to give you due process. Yeah. Do you know what that looks like? Think of a game plan. Be proactive. And I did a video, I think it was December 2024, because they were talking about another videos coming out about, they're going to implement the new general rating criteria for the mental conditions. They're going to remove the 50% for the sleep apnea. And I'm like, stop. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it. You worrying about the wrong thing. I say, this is what you do. Do your intent to file, identify you an examiner, start getting treatment. File a claim for PTSD, schedule an appointment maybe every other week, start seeing a doctor, start building that rapport, building that paper trail. So when it does come time for you to get a DBQ completed, that doctor is 6-7 months down the road or whatever, now that doctor is familiar with, one, your condition and what you're doing, and hopefully you already submitted that FOIA request to get a copy of your claims file, so that examiner can be looking at some of the same information that a third-party VA CMP examiner would be looking at. But some veterans, they decided not to do it, and now they found themselves, in this predicament. But again, they're relying on, again, I don't want to call it fear mongering, but people talking about this stuff, and I think veterans not understanding the other piece of it, which what their rights are.
Yeah. And beyond that, also policy.
Yeah.
How policy is passed. And not only how policy is passed, but understandably, let's take this for example. You just mentioned the changes in regards to the mental health regulatory criteria.
Mm-hmm.
They have been talking about that for 3 years. It's been 3 years. It takes time to be able to pass policy. Obviously, this administration have done things, unprecedentedly. However, we must also take in consideration some of that stuff was repealed.
Yeah.
Okay. But now implementing that type of policy that affects millions so very quickly, but also the Department of Veterans Affairs processes, that is very difficult to do, because implementation is very hard. AI implementation of this nature is going to be very difficult. If we can't get a regulatory change of these 3 issues so simply over the past 3 years, let's take a step back and think about how this is really going to affect you veterans.
Yeah.
Just get prepared, as Mr. Kimball said, get prepared.
Yeah.
As long as you're prepared, you should be good to go. But this is not to misidentify the real issue of this bill, because there are fraudulent issues out there. There are issues that veterans must seek real help.
Mm-hmm.
But this bill is simply removing all the crap that can be intertwined into the good work.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think its intentions are pure. However, we understand that crap rolls downhill, right?
Yep.
So you got to
Mhm.
take in consideration of that.
Yeah, yeah. And also veterans, I want you to be aware of some things, even, people say certain things like, oh, this is gonna happen to this company, and a lot of people don't know what a lot of companies do and don't do. Uh, I when I first started, I did, even still, I do a lot of stuff with uh, nonprofits. My fraternity, sister sorority, they asked me to do a Q and A event, and I just posted it on my YouTube channel. I think it was a couple of Saturdays ago, um, and I think 65 people liked the post, and only one person, I see her here. She's in the chat. Only one person showed up, and this is free information. Just like when I go live 7 hours and try to get through questions, free information. And I tell people, you work with whoever you want to work with, but you still invest the time to go out and, conduct your own research, regardless if you're working with a VSO, claims agent, attorney, or consulting company, or whomever. Um, you know, just make sure you invest the time, because when you get in that CMP exam or you're on the phone for a high level review, informal conference, then you got to know what you're talking about at that point. And I've seen a lot of veterans uh, lose just because they weren't able to reasonably articulate their symptomology as it pertains to the regulations for what they were doing with their claim. And that's, it's sad, and sad to see that, but unfortunately, it does happen.
Yeah, yeah. And just to kind of piggyback on that and really echo that information.
Excuse me one second, Mr.
Oh, please.
Davis. I'm looking at the chat. I do appreciate everybody's comments. I do have a disclaimer on my channel. I ask people to be very respective of myself, the guests that I bring on here, and the other veterans in the chat. If you cannot be respectful, even if you have a different opinion from us, that's okay, but do not be disrespectful. I will remove you from the chat. I'm sorry, Mr. Davis. Go ahead.
No worries, no worries. Again, all veterans have their opinions, and I guess it's welcome, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But thank you for that. One thing I wanted to echo is that and this is why I really respect KMD 89 and also yourself, Mr. Kimball, because again you're doing the work, and I think that's where we miss a lot of it at doing the work.
hmm
And no matter if you're on the channel doing the work and giving the information out, or in the community doing the work, and that's a big component of it. Some of the companies or the star players that are actually talking about the work, are they really doing the work?
right,
And that is a big thing, right? Are they in a community educating? Are they really actually giving back to the veterans themselves? And are they giving them tangible information, such as the regulatory information that you provide on a constant and daily basis, that's really going to win their claim, and not only win their claim, change their lives? A lot of times that's
right,
what it's going to do if you utilize the information that's being told to you at the highest level possible. It will change your life if you know how to navigate these processes.
right, right. And I've talked to veterans and had some really tough conversations. And I was talking to one veteran. This was a few years back, and the veteran was just he was a Vietnam vet. I'll never forget it. And I ended my day, and I picked up the phone, and I was just trying to explain Agent Orange Presumptive to him,
Mm,
and he wasn't understanding it because someone under VHA said, "Oh, you have this condition. You're a veteran. File a claim," and he did, and he got denied. He came back in, did a supplemental, got denied again. Well, the vet is thinking, I'm claiming this due to Agent Orange. I had a doctor under VHA tell me that uh, I should file a claim, and then why am I getting denied? So when he called me, I'm like, "Were you claiming this due? Were you treated in service for?" He was like, "No, I was in Vietnam, and it's due to Agent Orange, and the condition wasn't on the list." Now I know 38 CFR 3.309 subpart E tropical diseases, and I'm like, "Sir, it's not on the list." And he was like, "You sure?" I said, "Sir," I said, "it is not on the list." I said, I'm sorry, it's not me, it's the VA." He said, "Well, why didn't the VA put it on the list?" I'm like, "That is way above my pay grade. I don't know. I'm not saying that it should be on the list." And that vet told me, he said, "You know what? I'm just so tired. I'm gonna get up in the
Mm,
morning and drive to the VA and blow my brains out." And I was like, you know, I couldn't sleep that night, and I didn't know how to respond. I'm just talking. I'm like, "Sir, you a Vietnam vet. You been to one of the worst parts of the country at the worst time, and you made it. So I'm just trying to use whatever little psychology 101 for my classes in college, to talk this veteran down, and I got a hold of him the first thing the next morning. He was like, "Mr. Kimball, I really appreciate you. Um, I'm just gonna, find me a good representative and move forward and see what I can get service connected for." And I was like, "All right." I said, "You gave me a scare." I said, "You do just that." I said, "Because those individuals should, even though they're accredited, a lot of them don't, but they should know um, what they need to do to help you move the needle." But that particular condition, until they put it um, on the Agent Orange list, you're not going to get service connected for it. You know.
yeah, yeah. But that goes back to, really the leadership that you're showing there to be able to service that veteran and what you guys are doing. It's just amazing to see. But, really even understanding how these conditions end up under the reference, the CFR, the 3.309 echo, and for presumptive issues. A lot of them, you have to understand there are years of research that is done and collected. When you're going to the VHA and they are doing surveys and statistical data analysis
Mhm.
to understand what conditions are really affecting the veteran community. You know, this all this medical information that is provided. Honestly, it is a lot of times for your benefit.
Yeah.
So when you don't go under the Agent Orange registry, it causes issues for not for yourself, but for future veterans.
Yeah.
And even possibly for yourself if you're trying to get service connected, because again, that's what was essentially just was explained. But it goes back to doing the work, and you guys are really doing the work and actually serving the community, because these things actually don't necessarily always go that well when you're talking about a veteran um, under those stressors to potentially commit suicide.
Right.
And
Right.
it's a very scary thing, you guys. As veterans, and I'm sure there are many veterans here, again, attending the live. You guys have to understand, you guys are resilient.
Mhm.
That's at the end of the day, whatever this bill is going to do, and is going to impose, the resilience that you hold will always prevail.
Yeah.
We understand that the veteran suicidal rate is continuously on the uptick. These are the things, if you're listening to the channels and getting the education, this is going to provide some type of stability and support. It's not going to get rid of the issues that you're dealing with. We understand that.
Yeah.
But what we are trying to do is give you the tools to combat these type of bills that may affect you, and that may in turn uh, really provide some mental stability.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
Miss Davis, let's get into a couple of questions. I know we went almost an hour looking at here, so
Yeah.
let's take a couple. James, thank you for the donation. Definitely appreciate it. James says, just had a CMP exam for PTSD. Do you advise uploading a screenshot with the condition C being approved and the referral for community care? The therapy and C were done after claim submission. If you have community care, those records still would be under VHA, under progress notes in Capri, wouldn't they, Mr. Davis? That's what I'm
Yes,
thinking.
most definitely, most definitely. My advice, James, my advice would be being able to provide those community care records. Though they are present and available, a lot of times what happens is the transition in getting the community care records, a lot of times there are a delay. And
Yeah.
if there are a delay, why won't we actually gather the records after the appointment that has been imposed and you have a copy of the records and you actually submit it under your file so there's no confusion?
Right, right. Sometimes I think the veterans, they rely on VA to get these records. Things could get lost. When I'm leaving that community care appointment, hey, let me get a copy of that. Let me get a copy of that. Let me get a copy of that. And then you can submit that with your claim. So if for some reason it doesn't make, I think they still call it Capri. If it doesn't make it back to the VHA progress, your progress notes, like Mr. Davis said, you have a copy of it that you can submit with your claim. Oh, this is this the same James? Yeah, same James. How do we get a copy of the examination? Is it possible to get the DBQ as well? The exam was a virtual exam for PTSD. For your request to VBA, okay, submit that for your request and get a copy of the exam. And I don't know how long did you think it's taken. I think it's a lot faster now. When I was working at the VA, uh, obviously it was paper, it wasn't electronic initially, and it was taking man, like 18, 24 months.
Well, I can tell you it's definitely transition to be a lot faster for records to come through. However, what again, being boots on ground, what we're seeing is that a lot of times veterans are not notified what type, how are they going to receive the record notification. Before we always understood that it's going to come on a disc in the mail.
Mhm.
Well, these days, who has a CD-ROM? Not too many, right?
Yeah.
So what they're actually doing is that they're actually sending it via email that is encrypted, that is being forcibly sent to veterans. Well, if you're not notified of this email, or again notified that the records, your records request has been completed, and we are understanding what type of notification that you're going to receive, you tend to lose the records. And now we have to re-request those records again. And guess where we are? Back at the 12 to 18 months, or 18, it could possibly be 18 to 24 months.
Yep. Yep. Most definitely. They passed a bill. I want to say it was early part of last year, maybe year before last,
Yep.
that would give veterans access to their claims file, sort of like when you log into My Healthy Vet. But and in that video where I was talking about it, I said, don't hold your breath, because if the VBA gives you this information, oh man, it's game over at that point. They didn't, you got a leg up on them now, because you can
Yeah.
see exactly what they see, and that's gonna create a problem. A lot of veterans are gonna be um, um, knowing exactly, what's in there. Just one. I want to see everybody win. Um, when I was working at the VA, I would go to work pissed off a lot of times because a Raider in Atlanta regional office probably was at the club late during the week at one of those clubs in over on the west side of Atlanta, and didn't even bother to look through my medical records from active duty. I claim flat feet. We don't see nothing in there. All right, well, give me a copy of the records that you looked at, and it's all in there. Never even got a CMP exam. And
Mm.
then when I did get a CMP exam, one of them was horrible. And she was like, she didn't even address flat feet. She talked about other stuff. And I'm just like, you, and again, this was prior to things being electronic. And I was comfortable at that point by that time when I was rating. Um, but it was still frustrating because I had to fight that lie. And I'm like, you know what? I was just so I was just so done with these freaking CMP examiners. And here's another thing. I'm gonna ask you this, Mr. Davis, and we'll get back to some questions. Did you ever see CMP examiners write in the CMP exam, I observed the veteran get out of their car. I observed the veteran get in their car. They had full range of motion. I went to the waiting room and the veteran was bending over, lacing up their boots. And then when they get in the exam room, they would put, or the veteran showed up with makeup on, or the veteran showed up with a Louis Vuitton purse. You ever see crazy stuff like that in, written in CMP exams?
All the time, all the time. And that's why I caution the veterans, always make sure that, we're focused on the perception of things as well,
Mhm.
right? We're not exaggerating things. But understandably, as veterans, we understand that that day-to-day injury you're used to. There's something that you deal with. It is very, very
Excuse me.
common that many veterans may have a shoulder pain for 20 years and actually really don't discuss the shoulder pain or really talk about the shoulder pain. But when you get out of bed, when you go to the weight room, when you actually need to do your physical duties at your job or on base or what have you, then you go home to ice that shoulder. But you don't complain about it because that's not a space that you were given ever.
Yeah.
So now you're used to that, and you're getting out your car, lifting your backpack, putting it on your back and across your shoulder, and you're in pain. But you go into your CMP exam, understanding that you're there for help. However, you're not going to discuss the pain at the magnitude that it really, really affects you. So
Right.
then the examiner, well, they write on the exam, veteran was lifting 25-pound backpack and also, stretching his shoulder out in the parking lot.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. And guess what? Now you receive the denial based upon something that you were not privy to, that you were literally being surveillance.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, all right, we're gonna start from the bottom. I know we're not gonna get through all these questions. I have been trying to watch some of these as we speak. 66, thank you for the support. I don't understand why FOIA requests take so long. Hospitals across the country today can access your medical history now with no problem. Federal government, nothing. We were in the military. Now, we got the greatest navy in the world, and in my opinion, right, and I think yours as well.
Oh, yeah.
But that navy, that carrier, it's going to take a few days to get around the Horn of Africa, around Africa, right? It, it's not going to. You're not going to get from Jacksonville, Florida to Qatar in 2 days. It's just not going to happen. But nothing in the federal government. It all moves at a snail's pace.
Yeah.
Always moves at a snail's pace. Okay. All right. Can we talk about the problem of conflicted claims companies using shady DBQs and nexus letters according to recent OIG reports? Um, John, I agree that there are some companies out there. Okay. And should they be held accountable? Yeah. Because they, you know, any examiner that has, and I know some medical examiners, and I think that the majority of these examiners do or should take their medical license very seriously and not be falsifying anything. Okay. I know vets, you're looking for these yes answers, but don't fall for this okey doke and uh, get with these companies and get them, let them get you screwed over when it comes to the claims process. So, yeah, are there problem companies out there? Yeah, but I'm not going to say all companies out there are bad. Yeah. Let's see. Justifying the problem, too long to get records, before ITF expires. Actually, I did a video. I noticed, and you brought up a point, Mr. Davis, where they don't notify you. When I did my FOIA request, it was back, I think, when they had e-benefits. And I just happened to log
Mhm.
in one day. EP closed out. So I called the
Mm.
800 number. Yep, EP closed out. And I'm like, wait a minute. I haven't received anything. It's been more than 10 days. So I just called the VA White House hotline, told them
Mm.
I filed a complaint. And they was like, well, I say, I didn't call to get an explanation. I just called to file a complaint. When you send this complaint over to VBA, send it to St. Paul Regional Office. I can't think of their regional office number. I said because I'm still Sensitive 7, so that's where the RAC Center, Restricted Access Center, for my
Sir.
claims. That's where it was at. So, and have them send it there, and I would like a call back and not an email from a supervisor. And that got a phone call within 48 days. And the lady says, so she confirmed who I was, and I confirmed who she was. And she said, well, Mr. Kimball, she's real nice. We have 10 days to get you the information once it's closed. Well, it was closed on November 3rd. We having this conversation on the 23rd. I said, ma'am, I'm
Mm.
from a little small town in southeast Missouri. I'm a country guy. 5,000 people, only had 111 people in my graduating class. EP was closed out on the 3rd. This is 23rd. I say, unless my math is incorrect, that's more than 10 days. She said, I'm so sorry. I had that CD in about a week and a half.
Wow.
And I did a video about it, and people start doing it, and some people had success, so it could be done. The VA, I just tell people the VA don't put a priority on stuff like that, like dependent claims. They don't do it.
Yeah, no, true indeed. I think you brought up a really, really great, great point there. Congressional requests.
Mm-hmm.
Any, excuse me, any congressional requests. A lot of times, visibility is high priority. Any congressional request, typically. However, just because you make a congressional request doesn't mean that you're going to get a positive decision or a positive outcome.
Right.
Fortunately, Ms. Kimball did, but the congressional request, I've seen internally that congressional request actually agitates the raters or veterans to be able to get this done. And guess what? You're actually receiving a negative decision
Yep. Yeah.
based upon their attitudes.
Yeah. And there's a 38 CFR that covers that, but a decent rater, they can word it in a way that you would never know that they let their personal feelings come into play. I did see somebody say something about my camera. I'm using my webcam or backup. For some reason I couldn't get my other camera going, so this is why you got this particular view. But just listen to the information, that piece of it. We're gonna listen to that information. Let's see. Let's pull up another question here. I'll let you take this one, Mr. Davis. Is if I got to 80% while going to a CMP exams, then use private DBQs to get to 100 and denied my CMP exam, does that flag me?
Well, if you got 80% going to the CMP exam and you use private DBQs to get to 100% and deny my CMP exam, does that flag me? I don't necessarily think it's going to flag you. I just honestly believe that you're again, you didn't receive a positive decision. So if you didn't receive a positive decision, I don't think they're looking for the ones that you have been denied. I think it's more or less related to the positive decisions. However, I honestly believe it is going to be collected for data and
Yeah,
understanding of the information to make sure that with these private DBQs, are these the DBQs that they're looking for, to make sure that they're training the AI appropriately.
right, right. Let's see. I saw another question here. Oh, here we go. Hi, Dwayne. Can we record a CMP exam? I've never heard of a veteran recording one. There is a M21-1 that states that there's no veterans don't have like a legal standing in a CMP exam saying that you're able to do this or you can't do this, or basically uh, bring in like your VSO. I've heard veterans taking their caregivers, their spouses, or siblings, or dependents with them to help them through the exam, or just or to attend the exam with them. But take your phone and just ask them, say, "Hey, I would like to record," and just see what they say. You know, would that be a good thing to record it? Yes, but also the big thing I think, Ms. Davis, do you know what questions to be asking? Like, veterans say, "Oh, my exam was only 5 minutes." If that's a musculoskeletal exam, that's a problem. If the examiner doesn't want to use a goniometer to measure your range of motion, that's a problem, because you know I've had clients where they said the examiner refused to use a goniometer. They get a copy of the exam, and guess what the examiner put in the exam? They used the goniometer. So how do you fight that at that point? But yeah, I would ask that question, um, to see if they see what they say. All right, let's see. We got denied CMP exams do trigger a red flag, but add fidelity by making appointments with the VA. I guess I'll be a red flag, Mr. Davis. I'm gonna stand on business. What they say, stand on. What they say, stand on 10 toes or whatever. The young people say stand on 10 toes or whatever. But yeah, and I'll let you take this one, Mr. Davis. Is a private
All right.
DBQ required for a fully developed claim?
Is it required? No. Is it one of the most useful and helpful things that's going to actually support your claim? Yes. So my recommendation is, going out to be able to seek assistance to get a private DBQ completed, and at that point, being able to utilize that as a piece of evidence. And if done correctly, just as Kimball recommended, I possibly would not even go to the CMP exams after my DBQ has been completed fully and thoroughly,
Mm,
and making sure that is completed at wholeheartedly. There shouldn't be any issue.
yeah. Let's see. Let's pull up another one here. Big roster. I done went ahead HLR where the drove found CUE using my Nexus, my private DBQ, where Raider denied, grant, and overlooked evidence. Okay. Now I don't understand that second piece where Raider denied and granted, or denied, granted, and overlooked. Yeah, I need a little bit more clarification on that one. And that's what gets me, Mr. Davis, is um, the inconsistency. When veterans submit these DBQs, and you have some VA employees using them and some not. The ones that are not using it, I've seen where veterans did file an appeal, and the DRO said, "Yeah, difference of opinion," and they use it. So again, it goes something what you talked about earlier, the inconsistency in the training. So while these committees are talking about all this other stuff, they're not talking about the things that they could be doing internally. Hey, how do we get veterans access to the claims folder faster? Because
Yeah.
we're not going to extend those 12 months for a high level review. And you need this information. In my opinion, you see that's the old folder. That's what, I don't know if you can see that behind my play button right there. That's my old claims folder. That's what they used to look like before they were electronic. That's what we
Yeah.
were looking through, stuff like that, right? And so, you need that when you go to appeal. And that's how I won my appeal. I went in there, I took it to work. I have a backpack. I took it to work. And the drawer in Atlanta was like, she asked me, "How do you get that?" Because that's what it looked like. She had the same thing. I said, "I just kept everything that I sent the VA, and I kept everything that the VA sent me." And I went to the release of information, because there was no My Healthy Vet where you could log in, and I got a copy of progress notes. I got copies of all my CMP exams, and she was like, "Oh," and that helped me build my case, and everything that I appealed, I won. Effective
Mm.
date, I was denied service connection. I won that because I had not one DBQ, I had multiple. And this is the
Wow.
thing, Mr. Davis. I'm gonna tell you, and people don't believe this. People say, "Oh, Dwayne, you don't know what you're talking about." Like, I forgot how to read since I left the VA, right? And in that appeal, the Dro asked me, she said, "Would you be willing to report for a CMP exam?" And before I could say no, I said, "Well, have you done a cursory review of my DBQs in
Mm.
my file?" And she said, "Yes." So, what part of those DBQs are insufficient? What part of the DBQs will not allow you to grant the benefit? Long pause. She wasn't thinking, like, I don't think she knew I was a raider. I don't think she knew I was a raider. And she said, "Well, yeah, I can use them. So no need for a CMP exam." And so I was asking her specific questions because guess what I wanted? It was being recorded. And I wanted that transcript from the San Diego regional office because we would have to send those out there to get them transcribed, right? And so if I had to, she didn't do that, guess what I was submitting going to BVA with? Because I had documentation, documented. She said, "Yeah, I could use it." I looked at it and it's good to go. But a lot of veterans don't know to do that and know some of the things I talk about on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a huge point. Now, going to a lot of those conferences there, I think it's so much value in that if you're well equipped with the knowledge.
Yeah.
It's so much value in that. And let me tell you, veterans, the only reason I want to go ahead and talk about this because it does really kind of focus on this process here about the DBQs and also those conferences. Myself, I spent some time, elongated time, at the Washington D.C. Appeals Management Office.
Mm.
Right, so we're doing BVA. Okay, we're doing a lot of Board of Veterans of Appeal. Okay. So understanding that a lot of this information is being sent up to the judge. And though the WARMS manual and 38 CFR provides us jurisdiction in regards to how to develop, rate, and also enforce claims, well, when it goes up to the judge, a lot of the information provided by the veteran, whether if it's transcription, whether if it's written, is noted to be truthful unless otherwise, again, fraudulent information is found to be truthful and whole. So when it goes to the judge, you have to understand that the judge has more freedom to go outside of the 38 CFR warrants manual to grant or deny. So taking the process all the way up as seriously as possible is going to help you in so many ways and fashions. To include also making sure that your intent to files and you are meeting the dates in place because you can have continuous prosecution and everything could go back to the intent to file based upon a hearing that you attended and you provided the direct transcription.
Right.
So that's what I just wanted to note that it's very, very, it provides a lot of reminiscence in regards to what we're talking about, making sure that you are able to communicate the symptoms, communicate the why, how, and what should happen is very important.
Hmm. Here's another question. People are asking you directly now, Mr. Davis, to answer their questions. Here you go.
Mr. David, excuse me, Mr. Davis, what if the VA can't locate my Army medical records? Advice? Yes, actually. Just because you don't have records don't mean that you don't doesn't mean that you don't have the disability or you did not go through what you went through while serving in the United States Army. Therefore, making sure that the claim that you are claiming, you actually follow through with the deny. If it is denied, you follow through with continuously prosecuting that claim and attending any hearings and also providing any medical evidence, lay statements, buddy statements, and anything that is going to support your file. So my advice to you is making sure that you take it all the way up, because just because your service medical records aren't able to be located, it does not mean you are going to be denied automatically, or you should be denied automatically.
Right.
There should be some consensus that can be able to provide some support in that. However, at the regional office level, typically you're going to get denied because there are no uh, direct evidence that they can pinch off for direct service connection.
Right.
If we're talking about a direct service connection, I want to be very
Yeah.
clear.
hmm Frank says, if I say VA sucks, is that a negative comment? You know, no, Frank, no. I don't know. On your channel, Mr. Davis, when your comments or when you go live, if people disagree with you know something that we said tonight or something that I've said, that's okay. I'm always willing to have a conversation. Uh, and we may just have to agree to disagree, you
Mhm.
know. Um, but it's just the respect thing, it's not one person on YouTube or in this whole VA niche that knows every single thing and is only right.
Yeah.
You know, I still have to go look stuff up. I was even trained not to memorize this stuff because it changes so much, but know where to go and find it and interpret it and apply it to what you are doing. So, Frank, no, it's a lot of people on social media disagree with me, and I'm okay with that. It doesn't bother me at all. But we're not going to do any disrespect. But this is what you're saying is not disrespectful. At some point when I worked at the VA, I was like, man, I was just, I felt I felt that way too when I was going through the claim process. So, I would definitely not hold that against you. Okay.
Well, I'll
Thank
tell you right now, Frank, and I'm sure sure it sucks a lot less educated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because if not, you'd be chasing your tail now until the cows come home. Trying to figure this stuff out because you don't know if what you're doing is correct or not correct. You know. Let's see. Thank you guys. I'm just trying to get through some of these here. You guys are doing a wonderful job for us. Thank you so much for your hey, not a problem. I like doing these lives. I think one time, Miss Davis, I said, hey, here's a link. You want to come on live and ask you a question live? I invited someone that left me a comment. I said, well, hey, how that same energy tonight? Come on. I haven't seen them, come in the chat unless I missed it, Um, you know, let's see. Here we go. Here's one. If headaches were denied by the VA, can you use the documents from the military medical record to resubmit again?
Hmm.
Good question. Good question.
Good one.
I don't think a lot of people understand or look at that evidence section because if it's in that evidence section, you know, or whenever you reopen a claim on the 0995, it states, you need new and relevant evidence. And um, you have to submit that new and relevant evidence. Can you let everybody know, just give a brief description of what the VAs, what they mean when it comes to new and relevant evidence in a supplemental claim?
Yeah, I think this one is a very tricky question, right?
Mhm.
It goes back to what we were talking about with the backlog. I think the VA was really hanging their hat on a lot of denied claims based upon new and relevant evidence. And when we talk about new and relevant evidence, I want to be very clear. Evidence that is new does not mean evidence that is in your military record, because your evidence that is in your military record is already taken consideration.
Right.
New evidence would be evidence that you have sought out treatment for your headaches, have a headache journal or log that talks about how many headaches that you're having throughout the month, weeks, and year. However, that is just being helpful for them. But with that, when we talk about relevant evidence, this is where I think training is needed amongst the entire Department of Veterans Affairs and also our veterans themselves.
Yeah.
Relevant evidence is evidence that is going to potentially seek to overturn the previous decision. And now, why I say that is because now they then need to deemably reopen that claim. By regulation standards, though, you going to appointments and seeking out treatment for your headaches that you're having a continuation could also be being deemed as relevant based upon regulatory standards. But I will caution you that you want to focus on the denial narrative and trying to overturn the discussion of why it was denied.
Yeah, I agree. Some veterans, you said it earlier, that narrative of the rating decision is so important. And whenever a veteran had a CMP exam and the examiner said no, oh, I made sure your CMP examiner from your CMP exam dated this date, medically opined, it is less likely than not, and provided the rationale for the negative. Because I want them to know it wasn't me that's saying no. I gave you the benefit of the doubt, requested the CMP exam. That doctor that tried to do the okey doke on you, hey, thank you for your service. Oh, I got a daughter in the Marines. They the ones who said no. So, like you said earlier, make sure you read that rating narrative, because at least that's what I did. I always want to spell out, hey, maybe I was just snitching on snitching on the examiner, right? But yeah. All right, James. Oh, James, thanks again for the donation. I did a late statement. My spouse did, and 2 buddy statements. Do I still need to do a VA Form 21-0781 for initial PTSD claim?
Can I take this one here?
Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
James, yes. The answer is yes. It's yes. No, let's be cut and dry. It's yes. The 0781 is a prescribed form that's mandatory. It does not deem a denial automatically. No. However, help them help you.
Right.
And providing the 0781 will do that.
Right. A lot of people call me a laxed rater, Mr. Davis, because I was going to say yes, but in this instance, I'm gonna give you an instance where I would say no. If the veteran is claiming PTSD due to hostile military terrorist activity for serving in Iraq, and we have the DD 214 or something showing boots on ground in Iraq, that's enough for me to get you to that CMP exam. Now, with that being said, you want to make sure you got that diagnosis, because you don't want to give that examiner an option to say, oh, there's no diagnosis. And if y'all did the intent to file, hopefully you heed my warning, that intent to file, and start getting those treatments and building your paper trail. But in that instance, I would say I would need, because that's the stressor. If you put the same thing on 0781, you were in fear for your life while you was in Iraq, I still have to look through the records to see if you were in Iraq. But in any other cases, yeah, I would say, yeah, the 0781, because that's where, like you said, you have to put your stressor, and especially if it's done come back, you gotta develop for it. The VSR got to go out there and do it. So
but
I think
do want to add to that
go ahead.
a bit. So last year, the prescribed form on 0781 changed. Right?
Yeah, it did. Yep.
So it is so more comprehensive now, where symptoms, location, and also circumstance can all be found in that 0781. The way it is written out now, it's much more comprehensive than the previous 0781. And that's why I always stress the 0781 because it will pretty much put it right in their face. It's very difficult to not provide what is needed in that 07.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just so those little things like that. Because you get a new VSR. I don't know. When I first started rating, you would work hand in hand with a VSR. And man, if you had a horrible VSR sending you bad, incomplete work, I had a guy, he had transferred from Philadelphia, man. This dude was just, he was just not good. And another rater, he was working with another rater. She complained about him and they gave him to me. And so I'm trying to, help the brother out a little bit. And he don't, I don't talk to nobody. Oh, okay. Got it.
Wow.
Deferred.
Oh, wow.
When he came in, I was deferring stuff back to him at least 3 or 4 files a day. That's how bad he was requesting. A veteran could say, I'm claiming an increase in my back condition. He would request the exam. It get to me, veteran wasn't even service connected for it. Why would you request an exam? When the veteran said they was filing an increase, I was like, you got to be kidding me. I want to see a vet file a claim. I want 100% P&T just because. What you going to do? And so I complain. I'm like, now I'm falling behind on my production quota, right? And so the assistant coach, well, talk to him. And I ain't got time for that. That's not my job. This is the second time. Now it's affecting me. And in my one-on-one, you're talking about, Dwayne, you borderline with your quota. You was, always ahead. I'm like, I wonder why. But yeah, I don't want to get into those horror stories.
I will say, like, let's talk about the politics there. Those politics right there, in office politics. You have a bad VSR, and the VSR is to pretty much be assistant to the rater, making sure that the file is prepared prior to it getting to them to actually adjudicate the claim. Now, you're saying that you had a bad VSR, so now you're kicking the file, kicking the can down the road, and you're lacking production at this point. Now you're under pressure to push claims out so you can meet productivity. And guess what? I don't know if you guys thought that the Department of Veterans Affairs was a regular government organization. No, they will fire you. You will get fired.
Quick. I seen that happen. I seen it happen to some good VA employees, ones that actually, they fell behind on their production quota, got put on PIPs, and they were like, I'm developing and rating these cases the way I was trained. And they were very thorough, and they were individuals that if I got a file from them, I knew I could go through it, and confirm that everything was done correctly. You had some of those employees that you were following behind, like, oh man, I really want to take some time to look at this. And those were the ones that were getting fired. The ones that were doing the crappy work, those are the ones that was getting promoted, getting the incentive awards, a little $500, $2,000 at the end of every year. It was, it's just crazy. Okay, so
I wonder if some of those incentive awards went to the VSRs at the Philadelphia office.
You know what? I think a lot of people. What was I talking about that? I said somebody got paid because it was I think management had to be involved because not the regional director, the director that's over all the regional directors in the report, OIG report, I think it stated that even he or she that was over all the different regional offices in the area were complaining. This can't be. Look at the average of other individuals doing the same job.
It's not even possible. If you're doing, it is humanly impossible to complete that many claims. It's humanly impossible.
Yeah.
So when you talk about there's more than one individual involved, I defer not to get to that of it, but I'll tell you right now, 9 times out of 10 it probably was. And
Yeah.
when I say it probably was, when I talk about more than one individual,
Oh yeah.
it goes all the way up.
Yeah. And the question I even have, will those incentives have to be paid back?
Mm.
You know, because they were pumping out, and at that point, and again, the veteran is caught up in the middle because if they go through and review those and find errors, they may not make the veteran pay that money back because it's not the veteran's fault.
Mhm.
But a veteran could be depending on that money, and now you take it away all because somebody decided to just say, okay, just go through, don't review nothing, and say yes, yet check the check the yes boxes. Um,
But that goes into the bill, right? What are the actual, ramifications that are going to happen with the information that is found? Because now you're solely being reliant on a system that could possibly not have been proven to be tested to be correct, 100% correct, and now you're putting these veterans under the strain.
right.
Now are we really helping the community by this? Now, it's a
Mhm.
lot of different questions that we must ask.
And even they had I remember they had a pilot program, and I think it was a private company out of Louisville, Kentucky, requesting CMP exams. That
Mm.
lasted less than 30 days. We were like, we get the VSRs and ready. We were like, what? And it was just it created more work
Yeah.
because now you got to send it back. We were sending after they nixed it, the work that they had done, we would see it. We were just like, what were they thinking? So like you stated earlier, you come up with these new programs, you're about to open up a whole new can of worms, and that 100,000 backlog we talked about. We talked about
Yeah.
earlier. Will it increase or will it decrease? Because I don't think he really got into the numbers. Like, hey, this is how many we have in inventory. You know,
Let- let-
uh,
but
go ahead.
those are the I think this is the numbers that that we want the general public to see. But let's understand, veterans, we're here to educate the general public. So
Yeah.
when we reflect these numbers, we are going to unpack them and really talk about them because introducing 100,000 backlog of that nature is
Mhm.
there's a lot of how can I word this, crap decisions that went through that probably should not.
Yeah.
And so we got to really understand that.
Yeah.
But now it's just it gets into the fact that there are quality raters out there that's doing the work, but it is also a lot of nuances that the VA must handle. And the VA, again, when we talk about the VA, I don't want to put so much strain on the VA and because they have improved over time. They have
Oh
been
yeah.
continuously showing improvement on a regular basis, and they're trying. But it is so many holes in the system that is going to negatively impact so many people in so many different ways, up, down, and side to side. Trust me when I tell you that.
Yeah.
Okay. But back to again the DBQs, I will say, I don't know if you remember, Kimball, there was a time back in 2020 where public access to disability questionnaires, they did cut off for some time, and a
Yep.
judge repealed that.
Hmm.
So understanding that, when we talk the DBQs has always been an ongoing issue. So that's where the DBQs are very, 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 very important in regards to the veterans claim. However, um, DBQs could find us here, and
Yeah.
this is one of the reasons why we're here.
Right.
And I don't necessarily blame the people that are, taking advantage, which, and it shouldn't be that way, right? It shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
However, they opened up a can of worms that they're trying to close, and I think that's why we're here, because a lot of these people that are in this space, in this field, are you doing it for the right reasons? Are we here for the right reasons? They don't know that. So
Right.
now many of these figureheads that are talking about, let's get your DBQ. I guarantee 100%. And this, I can
Ooh.
guarantee you 10, I can guarantee you they have never rated a claim before.
Yep. And I tell veterans, if it's a company, oh, I'm sorry, let me bring this back. Thank you, Mr. Horton. Definitely appreciate the support. If it's a company out there that's saying, hey, come work with us, we can get you 100%, don't do it. Don't like cross the street. And remember that movie with Shaft when he was beating that guy? And he say, what's my name? Shaft. He say, you know that little boy live up the street named Tommy? He say, yeah, wrong answer. Bow. If you see him, you turn around and run for your life. Nobody can guarantee you anything when it comes to this process. If somebody's telling you, hey, come work with me, I guarantee this, that, don't do it. Don't do it. It's dangerous. I think it's very misleading, because I've seen claims get denied where veterans did follow the VA regulation and then turn around and get approved. Okay. But if somebody's just right out of the blue or just anything, even if they look at it, I done seen things, Mr. Davis, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, this is good to go. But I'm not going to tell anybody, oh, yeah, you're going to get service connected. Oh, yeah, you can get 100%, because it still has to go through the process. We've talked about it here tonight. Now I've talked about it before. I've worked with individuals that thought that this was a welfare system for veterans and went out of their way just to deny. I did a claim one time and I went on vacation and somebody else had the claim. And it was a member of my team that felt that this was a welfare system. They were a veteran. And the majority of people think that it's the non-veteran employees at the VA that are hard on veterans. It's some of the veterans that are hard on the veterans. And I went so far to tell this veterans POA, if you appeal it, call me as a witness, because I was the one that requested the CMP exam. The examiner not only gave one medical opinion, when the rater questioned that opinion, they wrote back, gave other medical studies as to how this diagnosis is, how it is affected over time. It develops over a longer period of time based off repetitive motion. And they still found a way just to deny the claim. So again, when somebody says they can guarantee you something, nah, because you got individuals like that at the VA, and that's what used to piss me off, and that's what still pisses me off. And they shouldn't be working there. I'll let you chime in on that. But before you do that, I want to be respectful of your time. Normally, I know we are way over. So I want to be respectful of your time. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I don't want to.
Oh, no, we're here. Listen, if the people here, we're here. Okay.
All right. Cool.
But I'll tell you this, you hit on a point that it just grinds my gears, man. You talk about being a veteran. You talk about understanding the things that veterans go through. you talk about the statistical data to show veterans actually going through the issues of transitioning out of service to civilian sector, the actual exposure to mental health issues, the actual exposure to ongoing physical issues, diseases on an ongoing basis, and also the lack of commitment to certain things as families, definitely deployed veterans, because again, you're always in and out, of the household
Mhm.
um, due to deployment. Now, and we can go on and on and on about understanding statistical analysis of the data of a veteran themselves. However, when you are built under the values as myself, again, when we talk about the Navy honor, courage, and commitment, that is not always transition to the civilian world as a unified organization.
Mhm.
Many of the employees in the Department of Veterans Affairs are veterans themselves. Unfortunately, I think there's an issue with the Department of Veterans Affairs understanding that their employees are veterans and the ramifications that the standards that they impose affect veterans to a very, very high level, mentally, physically, and also emotionally. As a raider, you're exposed to some of the most damaging stories that you can ever ingest in your life.
Oh yeah.
So when you understand that and you are under much of productivity and you see some of the worst stories compared to uh, it could be labeled as a mild manner stressor, a stressful event that happened in service, your own personal judgment gets imposed. And then you start denying. Well, it wasn't that Vietnam veteran who was in the forest or the back country over there fighting the war. Now you're doing comparisons, and once you start comparing one veteran's experience to another, the habit of denials come through, and it happens so regularly, and then it becomes culture. And then it becomes instilled. And next thing you know, you have a group of employees who are denying veterans on a regular basis, but then have a poster on the wall say, grant first, deny if you must.
Yeah.
And it happens so very often, you guys.
Yeah.
So don't give the VA the chance to make sure you're educated, equipped, and also going after your case file the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Davis, this question is for you. They requesting you by name now.
Mr. Davis, is it a pro or con to submit to the VBA appeal for hypertension secondary to PTSD after just receiving a win from the BVA just 3 weeks ago? No, it's not. No, not at all. If this is a issue that you've been dealing with and you have went through the process and you actually were denied, well, send it up. Send it up. Go through the process to be able to get because it is a plausible issue, right? When we talk about plausibility in regards to issues such as hypertension correlated to PTSD, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. So I would say send it up. It would not deemably hurt your file because it's going to be a separate and distinct claim, right? And again, what that would trigger is a secondary EP that's alongside your claim.
There you go. Yeah. John says I had a hard time making my 4 points on non-rating claims. Okay, John,
Ooh,
how did
ooh.
that's not
Ooh,
good, John.
non-rating claims. Tough. Ooh.
Yeah. Um, how are raters held accountable for bad, wrong decisions? I know when I rated Mr. Davis, they would pull, I think the entire time that I rated, they pull 5 ratings per month. And they were always behind by like 6 months. I wasn't yeah. So, you get it, it'd be June, it'd be okay, February. And you get an email today, February, hey, you got a quality error from last October. So what about all those other claims you done rated? something similar. Now you're sweating bullets, thinking like, oh man, where's my quality at? I got to get it up. I got to,
Mm.
get some 100% quality reviews. And what was it like? How many were they pulling when you rated?
No, very similar. It was always 3 to 5. It used to always change, based upon standards. They would always change it, but on average, that's what it was. About 5 pulls, and like you said, they were always behind. And being behind, you may be in the month of July, but you get that quality error from March, and now they want to identifiably, fix that quality error.
Mm.
However, you're still trying to get your productivity for July. And how can I be in the mind frame of what happened in March on a claim, and you're trying to explain to me on why it was, a wrong decision, and it's so much time that has passed. So
Yeah.
there's nothing that you can do about it. And now the only thing you can do is just do what they say.
Yeah. I think when I I would always appeal it, and I knew a couple of them I was wrong. I just knew I was wrong, and instead of accepting it, I just appeal it and I throw some bogus 38 CFRs at it, just to make them do some more work. I'm like, you know, that was me, man. I was like, nah.
But I
We
think
all
even that, right? You talk about that. I think it was that's a good example of how claims are delayed.
Yeah.
Right? Because we go back again, and now that it's its own internal pressures going back and forth with QRT, Raiders versus QRT, VSRs versus Raiders, and then you even got the claims intake personnel that are struggling. It's always a back and forth with a lot of the system there.
And I mainly did that when I had to uh, rescind a decision that was going to impact, I did a propose, it was some type of adverse action. Maybe I granted something I wasn't supposed to grant. I would just do that because I knew they were backlogged and that would push it to the next month. So that gave the veteran the extra money because they weren't going to take the money back from the veteran. So I'm gonna help him out. If it's extra, 400 or 500 that month, then hey, I'm letting him get it because I'm gonna have to take it away. What is it, 60 days? Give them due process, and then they could do a hearing and prolong it even further after that. But yeah, one of the LinkedIn users says, "Thanks for the info, gentlemen. Keep up the great work. You're helping us. Hey, definitely appreciate the support." Um, just going through here, looking at oh, here it was. I'm sorry, Mr. Ray. The way you act like you didn't know my name on Rate HQ stream a few weeks back. Hey, I do apologize. I know I don't know was I don't know if he invited me on or did we do one. I think that's the one we did together. But sometime, Miss Davis, I think like New Year's Eve, I went 7 hours.
Ooh.
Oh yeah. And then Christmas Eve, we went almost 5. Yeah. Yeah. So again,
Mm.
that's why I tell people, I'm on here a lot, just come on and, ask me a question because I got 3 YouTube channels actually. So I'm extremely busy. The other 2 people don't know they're mine, but uh, I spend majority of my time here, but I'm doing other things as well. And this is where you're gonna catch me, not calling my 800 number um, or emailing because a lot of people they'll call and the first thing they'll say, I don't know how it is for you. Let me just tell you my story. And it's like,
Mm.
that's a 30-minute question. I mean, 30-minute, because they want to get everything out. I get it,
Yeah.
and then they're expecting a response. And I may have 5 or 6 questions. Next thing you know, it's an hour and a half later, and we're still on the phone. And my phone is still ringing. So I'm like, if I'm on here, I think the longest live stream I did, it was myself and another veteran, David Piatak. He talks about VA home loans. We did 12 hours.
Wow.
We did, was it last? It was year before last. We did 12, and it was fun too. We had
Mm.
our teams got together. It was a team effort, and we had, it took some planning. It just wasn't like, oh, we're just gonna go live tomorrow night at 12 hours. it was a lot, and I was
Yeah.
done. So we had to factor in, hey, we're going to show one of our YouTube videos at this time. That's going to give us a break to maybe get a little sandwich. So I had to like make I had my wife make some sandwiches, and so while we had a 10-minute video, I was, able to eat half a sandwich and stuff like that. So, Mr. Ray, I do apologize. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Uh, Hopefully you don't hold it against me. All right. I appreciate, but I do appreciate the support, Mr. Ray. He does come in and support a lot. Um, so I definitely appreciate it. Okay, here's a question. I can tell they are overworked because they will overlook all your evidence. You sometimes have to do a HLR so a senior DRO can find the CUE. I'll let you respond to that. Well, I'll respond first, and I'll let you go, Ms. Davis. It's, I get that. I hear that a lot from veterans. They say they overlooked, and overlooked. And I'm like, and this was just me when I rated, whatever I put in the evidence section, I'm saying that I looked at it. If I, in VBMS and I said I reviewed San Antonio VA medical healthcare system progress notes from this date to this date. If it was 2 years of stuff, I didn't go line by line. I would, pull it up and do a search, keyword search, especially if I was looking for blood pressure readings. And I would just scroll down and look, and I'm looking for anything above 110, 190, I think it's 100 or 190 is systolic and dystolic, and then I was like, oh, don't see nothing. I will put that in the evidence section. Then I will go on to the other evidence section. How would you view this statement?
It's a very interesting one because I do agree. However, I also want to, focus on not being overworked. I just also think efficient, right?
Mhm.
Efficiency matters because though you are taught to rate a claim, you are not taught how to efficiently review evidence and be able to rate a claim. It's going to be based upon whoever your trainer is, a lot of times, right? Um, but now sometimes some of this stuff is very complex, you guys. Some of this stuff is very complex, and you may not be overlooked. It may not have been overlooked. It may have just been, well, it was just misidentified. And if you are dealing with a case that, a pretty open and shut case, hearing loss tinnitus, well, it's pretty open and shut. But
Right.
if you're dealing with a potential cancer case that could have been in remission, went back into remission, went back active, was metastasized and caused other issues, and now it caused an effective date issue, and so on and so forth. Let me tell you something. That could take 8 hours to be able to unpack, and some things are overlooked. It's not necessarily it is overlooked because they just overlooked it. It's overlooked because it is a very, very complex puzzle that you need to put together. So it doesn't make it it doesn't make it easier that this stuff goes all the way back to 1994.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I would say, though, we want to put a lot on the adjudicators. Uh, let's give a little bit of grace as well.
Yeah.
It is a little complex. Some things are missed, not due to being purposeful about it, but they're also under strain and productivity as well. And once the VA or the VBA goes under an incentive in that regional office, well, guess what they're going to do? They're instructed to push claims. If you're instructed to, hey, well, right now we're focused on quality and not quantity, guess what? Now they're going to, again, slow down productivity and focus on the quality.
Mhm.
But it really depends on what that regional office could be incentivized or focused on at that time frame.
That's correct. That's correct. All right. Can this gentleman give us his statistics on how many veterans get service connected and the average rating with his DBQs compared to national average? I'm assuming you're talking about myself, John. I don't do DBQs. I don't complete DBQs. I'm not a medical or mental health professional. Um, I don't recommend one office. Yeah, I have sponsors to my channel, but at the end of the day, veterans can get their DBQs from wherever they want to get them from. Period. If you want to use a particular company that does DBQs and exit statements, use that. If you want to go to the CNP exam, do that. It's your option of whoever you want to use. Okay. I think I had to answer this in a comment earlier today, Mr. Davis. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sitting behind a computer typing up anything. I don't have a medical or mental health license. No, I don't do that. That's not what I do. I don't work for a company that does DBQs and nexus statements. And I think that's where a lot of information comes from, because a lot of people refuse to have a conversation and understand exactly what I do or what another company does. And it's just they take some information, and a lot of times it's misinformation, and they run with it.
Mm,
They don't uh fact check anything. Like this whole thing that we're talking about tonight, this fraud stuff, people, and this. I know there's some channels out there that is making a lot of money off this, right?
mhm,
Um, with all the views. And again, like we stated earlier, veterans pump the brakes, understand what they're talking about, but then again, understand what we've been talking about as it pertains to what your rights are. So if
mm.
something happens and it's considered adverse action, understand what your rights are. You got to do that. There's no way around that. Okay. I was looking for another question here. Now I'll let you take this. Let me know if you could. It's probably delayed a little bit.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
Yep. I done a claim on sleep apnea secondary to my mental health anxiety, but then I get a denial stating that it was because they said that it was not allowed on my back. VA did it wrong and would not redo it.
Mm.
Hmm. Well,
It's, what-
I guess from my understanding, from the statement, sounds like you submitted a claim with sleep apnea secondary to mental health. Then you received a rating that they did it on the back, I believe, and they won't redo it. Well, I would be remiss to understand. I mean, I would say send
yeah,
it up for a higher level review or appeal. If you felt as though they provide you with the wrong rating decision.
yeah.
So that's what I would say.
Uh, What is a foremost 781 used for? To confirming stressors, PTSD stressors, and they ask a lot of detail information. I don't know because I never was a VSR. I hired in what they call off the streets as a raider, so I used to get a lot of crap, but
Oh, you're the off the street guy, huh?
yeah, yeah.
They
So
used to say that all the time.
I had to understand the VSR's job, because they could just send me some
Mm,
stuff. It could be some bull crap, and I'd not know what it is, and just start rating it, and get an error. So I had to understand. That's back when they had these letters called 5103 letters. So you
yeah,
would, when a veteran filed a claim, they would send a 5103 letter and state, hey, these are the conditions that you're claiming. And so, I had to understand that piece and all this. And I'm like, hey, this is not in the 5103 letter. This is not in there. Do that. So it was rough. That first 12, 18 months, man, for me, it was rough. So me, you know, going into the 38 CFR, the M21-1, that helped a lot, because there wasn't a lot of people at the VA that was willing to help. Like, you go and try to ask questions, and they would just be like, I'm behind on my points. That meant leave me the hell alone. They didn't want to talk to you, especially if they didn't know you. And I didn't know anybody. at the VA. I met some really nice people over the years that worked there. But that took some time. But yeah, people come to you go to the desk and they be like, "No, I'm busy," or they would help you. This is how crazy it is. They would help you. Then they would go to the supervisor and complain.
Oh,
And then the supervisor having conversation with people. We have a team meeting. They be like, "Hey, your teammates are here not to help you. If you don't understand something, make sure you research it." And everybody looking at each other like, all these little curse words going through your head, like, what you, and, so it was like that stuff going on. And yeah, so I just eventually, I was like, man, I'm going to work from home. Screw this. This.
Did they offer a pizza party after that?
They would have, I think one time we had I guess I was just so antisocial. We had a party and I didn't bring nothing. I didn't even go in the team room to eat lunch with him. Because I'm like, it was somebody, because I'm thinking of that person who went to the supervisor, right? So now I'm looking at everybody like suspiciously, you know what I mean? And I'm like, we're all here, working with each other. And that was just crazy. But I get it, because it's to the point to what you said earlier. People are stressed out trying to get them points, and you don't know who's behind and who's ahead or who's behind, until they turn around and give you that look like, you the little brother or little sister, and you come knocking on their door like, "What are you doing? Can I come in and play with you?" Or, and they're highly pissed.
Just I got a story about that really quickly before we hop in the question. It was, so I went through the organic process of the VSR and RVSR switching, going all the way through the process, right? But it was so unfortunate. I think we had a cohort about 20 raiders that were hired on. It was 20 in that regional office, and when I tell you the 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 environment that you're speaking about, that environment was so intense that out of that cohort, only 3 people were left because it was such intense training and it was so difficult because many of those people were, again, off the street. So they didn't have any background knowledge of it either, So that environment, it is simply that's the environment, because if you don't hit the books and really take this as serious, you're gonna, just like you came in the door, you'll be out the door.
Oh,
and these
yeah.
are people that have relocated and uprooted their lives.
And
It's very, and I'm not saying like that it's that way now, but what I'm saying is it is a difficult environment because I don't think there's enough area of a safe space for training.
Right.
And because everyone, just because you qualify on paper, don't mean that it translates when you actually got to go do the claims.
Right. Because I had it rough, man. I had it rough when I went to Baltimore. I got pulled out of class twice, and there was a guy from Columbia, South Carolina, regional office, and he was, because I was asking a lot of questions. I come from the private sector, so I'm a manager in the private sector. You don't sit around and not ask questions. That's a red flag. So I'm like, hey, well, and the other people, that it was half the cohort group were promoted from VSRs. I think it was like 12. It was 25 of us, so it was half and half. 12 they got promoted from VSR positions, and then the rest of us we hired in off the street. I'm the only one asking questions from individuals hired in off the streets. And I'm like, man, am I dumb? Nobody else don't have no questions. I'm like, and so the guy called me out. And I said, man, so we got to the point to where they had to mock claims files,
Mhm.
and you would, requesting exams and then rating and stuff like that. And man, I'm looking around like everybody head down. I'm like, man, am I the only one not getting this stuff? He called me out. He emailed me this document, and I used that document to help me review cases to the day I retired.
Mm.
And then it was another master trainer from the Detroit regional office. She became my mentor. Walking VA claim dictionary.
Yeah.
And she said, Dwayne, get in the regulation. And she said, when we get back to the hotel tonight, meet me down the courtyard. And she had some files. Man, we sat down there for about 2.5 hours. I went back to class. I was on one. And they were like, what about this? Raised my hand, and then when I get back to the regional office, so I'm just kind of like, I'm kind of gliding a little bit. And since I was asking a lot of questions, I got kicked off the team. And I went
Mm.
to a team, I didn't know nobody. And we had cubicles, or it was 2-person cubicles. The lady, she requested to go to another team. And I'm like, man, I know I wasn't asking a lot of questions. I asked her a couple. And I knew that day I worked overtime. I was like, wait a minute. You've been certified in process improvement methodologies. You to manage departments in the private sector. Come on now, what are you doing? You can get this. So I started working overtime because at the time, overtime, it wasn't counted towards production. So I
Mm.
used that time to work some of my difficult cases where I could have the time to go into the -1 and the 38 CFR and reviewing references and kind of, take my time. And that's where I got better and better and better. So the manager that kicked me off the team, the day I retired, I went to her office and I thanked her. I said,
Mm.
the reason why I was successful is because of you. When you kicked me off the
Wow.
team, and I remember what she told me, don't memorize this stuff. Just know where to go and find it and interpret it. And that's what I still do today. But you're not talking days or weeks, you're talking about months. And those were some stressful months. I mean, I was living by myself at the time. I didn't have no company over at the house. When I got off work, I go out in the garage, I work out, take a shower, watch TV and fall asleep, get up in the morning, go to work, and just do it all over again. And then I start working weekends. On the weekends, I would ride my motorcycle, and that was kind of like my stress release. Because driving home, I would drive through St. Pete, go take the Long Bridge over through Tampa, hang out in Ybor, then go home. Sunday morning, back on the motorcycle, going. I was working 7 days a week, and I was just requesting exams, requesting. That's how I got good at requesting exams. So when it came time for me to make sure I had work, one day I'll just request none but exams. And now
Mm.
I got work that I can, claims I can actually rate. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
true
stressful.
indeed. It was a doghouse, man. It was tough. It was
Yeah,
tough.
yeah,
And that's the thing. I think that's where a lot of times we forget. A lot of these raiders are not doing it intentionally. A lot of this stuff is not intentional, y'all. This is difficult work. It is
yeah,
difficult work, and you got to also take in consideration. It's somewhere between the medical field, and then also the legal field, right?
yeah.
So we got to kind of understand how interpretation matters in relation to all this stuff because it's not as simple as one would think. Send up a DBQ, and hopefully it passes. Well, no, it's not that simple.
Right, right. All right, we're gonna take a couple other questions, Ms. Day. We're gonna get out of here.
Yes, sir.
I do appreciate you staying on this long. Here's one. If a decision was made and 5,200 was for an I reg, should it still follow? Always thank you for your advice and support. I'm gonna need some more information on that, especially when it comes to eyes, because you got like is it 5,200 and one eye? Was it L? LPO, light perception only in the other eye, and then I have to go to the rating schedule for that to try to get that percentage.
Yeah, eyes are difficult. Eyes are
Yeah,
difficult.
yeah. We jump back over here to some other questions here. I know this chat is still blowing up. Man, we still got over 200 people in here tonight. They sticking around. I know we
Yeah,
take
what they say, put fires in the chat if you want 12 hours.
that. See, Mama says, thank you both for your time and knowledge. Not a problem. Okay, here he says, LPO left. I saw another one here. 200, no SMC. Yeah, I had to go through the rating schedule get to get the percentage for that. Yeah. I never liked those eyes, man. Visual acuity, and I remember we had the chart with the two eyes, and then they had the man, that just
Oh, I tell
okay.
you, defer. We'll defer.
End up, we call it the VA claim cloud. The VA cloud. Where you about to send that claim to the cloud? Like people, I said that one night, man, on live, and people was like, "What's the cloud?" And people were like asking other YouTubers, like, "What is the VA cloud?" And they were like, "What are you talking about?" They like, "Hey, I heard that we ain't talking about this VA cloud." So I had to explain it. Like it's
Oh,
just nowhere. Nobody want to work their claim. So we
yeah.
just find a way to defer it and just get it out of your work queue and hey, let it go to the cloud. Jay says, how hard is it to get approved for SMC or caregiver program? Have you ever approved SMCS or SMCL? Thanks for the information. I'll let you go first, and then I'll follow after that.
As for the SMC is going to be based upon criteria base, right? It's kind of pretty straightforward. It's going to be you meet the criteria, you don't, you know.
Mhm.
When we talk about SMCA, SMCL, SMC SMCK, again, criteria based, right?
Sure.
But now when we talk about the caregiver program, I'm glad you asked about the caregiver program. The caregiver program, I think, is a phenomenal program. However, we got to understand that it's hosted under the VHA. Okay. So understandably, it is still going to be obviously allotted to veterans, but they go through a different process. And there is a a bit of strenuous criteria that you must go through. And what I mean by strenuous criteria, the judgment is not going to be allotted based upon, just direct criteria. It is also going to be there's also going to be a degree of discretion or opinion that will be implied as well, because the caregiver program is going to be in need of care for a veteran who is going to need assistant daily living needs, right? Feeding, bathing, uh, uh, travel, different things of that nature, clothing.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the caregiver program is a very interesting program. However, I think that as we continue to push the caregiver program, the VA continues to push the caregiver program, required criteria and information will start to be able to be better unpacked on how decisions are made. Because now, as of right now, I would deem the caregiver program as a early program that they're still trying to work out the kinks in a bit.
Mhm. So I the care I hear the caregiver program now is really hard for veterans to get approved, and people got to understand SMC falls under VBA, and the caregiver program falls under VHA, Veterans Healthcare Administration. And I did a video on that, and people asked me about it. I'm like, hey, you have to go out to the VHA's website because I don't keep up with their requirements for some of like the histogram and stuff like that. So you got to go out to their website. But I do hear it's a lot harder than uh, it was once before. Any SMCs, I was in the M21-1 earlier, and I was looking at SMCL. the requirements. So whether it's SMCK, SMCS, there's criteria. And like you said, Mr. Davis, either you meet it or you don't. So have I ever approved SMCS, SMCL? Yes. The hardest SMCs I've rated was SMCR 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, and my supervisor gave me 2 SMCRs back to back. It took me 3 days. And then I took 2 days sick leave because I was just so, how you go out and do work in your yard and you get physically draining. It was no lifting, and I was just mentally drained because I think in both cases, I granted maybe about 15 or 20 conditions in several SMCs. Also, auto allowance, home adaptation, all of that. And I still had to figure out the effective date for all this stuff. And one of them got pulled for the quality review. And I got a challenge corner because I didn't get an error.
Wow.
Man. And you talking about some stress.
But that goes to show you, right? The complexity. When we talk about the mental exhaustion that goes into some of these files, it is very, very difficult, and it does take time. There's been claims where you open and say, you know what, I'm gonna come back to this one. I need to come back to this one because it was just that difficult. And also, I'm still trying to meet productivity. And now, if I'm still trying to meet productivity and this one is so difficult to the point where it's going to drain the rest of my day, I'm not going to focus on that claim. And now, don't let me open the claim and it's just at a disarray.
Right.
Well, guess what? Going to go to the cloud. They're going to send it to the cloud. Okay. So that's why I tell you, again, taking your time to make sure your file is appropriate. And being educated is going to help so much.
Yeah. And I want to hit this one last question real quick because I think people are confused. I got a private DBQ in Nexus from over 100 miles away. I've been hearing veterans say, and I can only take veterans' words for this, saying that in a rating decision that raters are denying because your examiner was out of state or your examiner was more than 100 miles. And the regulation states that they have to be within 100 miles. And my question to those veterans were, what is the 38 CFR that covers that? Because the only M21 reference or regulation that I've seen talk about 100 miles, it says if it's more than 100 miles away and the examiner states that they repeatedly or continuously see you, something like that, don't quote me verbatim, in their office on a regular basis. It is a potential indicator of inauthenticity. That's it. So when people say the 100-mile rule or they had that in their rating decision, I'm appealing that all day because I want that Joe to tell me, give me that regulation that states that my doctor has to be in state. When VA is have these third-party companies that are sending veterans more than 100 miles away, out of state, depending on where they're located in their state. I've had friends drive from Missouri to Tennessee and have to go through Arkansas to get there. And it's like a 2.5 hour ride. And I'm like, what are you doing? And they have 3 VA medical centers with 2 within an hour of where they live. And the other one in St. Louis is 2 hours away, but they're sending them 2.5 hours away. And they got 3 VA medical centers within the same distance or less of their house. And it's like, I'm questioning that all day. That's just, I think for me, that's a waste of resources. But again, when you look at these hearings, nobody's talking about that.
No. And to your point, it is an indicator.
Right.
An indicator is not a final judgment. Mm-hmm. Now, to unravel the policy and regulations amongst what is to be deemable that can be beyond the indicator to be flagged as a permanent decision labeled as a fraudulent DBQ. There's going to be some real pushback and analysis that's going to kind of take years to unravel. So,
Yeah.
veterans, I urge you to understand that this is just a hearing of a committee. This is not legislation that's being passed
Yeah.
and actually implemented and going through. It is just a hearing.
Yeah. So, farming, no, they're not just looking for you. Like we're coming for you. Then no, don't. It's fear mongering. I think it's clickbait, and it is wrong to do because and some veterans are truly worried. But at the end of the day, I would be more so concerned about if you did it the right way. If you did it the right way, um, you know, that examiner looked at your evidence, you sat down with him, you did it the right way. You can explain that multiple times and your story would never change because it's the truth. I think it's the ones that went out there and paid for inflated DBQ and nexus statement that may run into some issues. Okay. So we're going to leave it right there, everyone. Go ahead and put a bunch of fire emojis in the chat for Mr. Davis spending the extra time with us. We did a live once before. I think it's been 2 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of years. We did a video last month. We're going to be posting a video each month, so definitely be on the lookout. We've already got the topics. We got the dates that we're going to do those recordings. So you're going to hear from two former Raiders that were trained by the VA and definitely still have a passion for this and want everyone um, to win. So definitely go over to Prepare to Compete podcast, his YouTube channel. They're doing a lot of great videos over there as it pertains to, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Davis, entrepreneurship, veteran claims, VA home loan. If I'm missing something,
VA home loans, real estate, entrepreneurship, to include even this updated information of policy, right? We want to make sure that you guys are always informed of all this stuff, right? Because again, these hearings, sometimes we hear about this stuff and it goes up, but then does it get stuck in the cloud? Where does it go? Is it really implemented? We want to make sure that that veterans are informed, and we're here for you guys. So,
yeah.
thank you so much.
Yep, definitely appreciate that. This is definitely a supporter. She was the one that came to the event. So thank you, Grace, for attending the event last month, the free event. Definitely appreciate that. All right, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Definitely appreciate it. Be on the lookout for other videos, and definitely, Mr. Davis, whenever you want to come back and we do another live, and maybe next time we'll just take straight questions. But I think definitely a good topic tonight. Hopefully, we put maybe some veterans at ease. And with that being said, everyone, thank you and good night.
Thank you so much.